Reviews are out for AMD's RX 7700 XT and the 7800 XT, and these cards are a triumph. Kind of. Maybe, sort of, I guess. The 7700 XT is a decent jump from the last gen 6700 XT, but it's also competing with the RX 6800, which has more memory, a better bus width, and costs less. And it's not just its predecessors the 7700 XT has to worry about. The 7800 XT has 16 gigabytes of VRAM rather than 12, and is up to 20% faster for only $50 more, making the 7700 XT redundant before it even comes out. Like me, compared to my older siblings.
Sorry, bro.
AMD isn't even making their own version of the 7700 XT, leaving that up to their board partners, if they even care enough to bother. The RX 7800 XT itself is a solid, though not spectacular, improvement over last gen that's $150 less at launch, but notably the RX 6800 XT launched smack dab in the middle of a global GPU shortage, so... The new cards come with DisplayPort 2.1 and AV1 support if you really need them, but otherwise, you're not missing much. AMD's pricing, however, is at least aggressive enough that Nvidia has climbed out of their Scrooge McDuck money pit to reduce the price of the poorly reviewed RTX 4060 Ti by another $50 to match the RX 7700 XT. They're merciful gods.
They're gods, they need a flood. Kill off the whole 40 series generation.
Microsoft will finally respect Windows 11 users' default browser choice and stop forcing them to use Edge like a pushy stage parent. Don't get too excited. That's only if the user happens to live in Europe. They get everything. It's unclear why Microsoft has had this strange, geographically specific change of heart, but the likely answer is to avoid further regulatory scrutiny, of course. In July, the European Commission opened a formal antitrust investigation into Microsoft's practice of bundling Teams and allegedly forcing installation and blocking removal of the software for millions of users. This week, Microsoft announced that they would no longer be bundling Teams with the rest of their productivity suite in the European market for no particular reason. Zoom, obviously an entirely disinterested party, has suggested that the FTC should open a similar investigation in the United States. Zoom also announced its new AI smart assistant and generative tools similar to Microsoft's own Copilot smart assistant, and refused to answer follow-up questions as to why it now had the same haircut as Microsoft and what it was doing with so many pictures of Satya Nadella and Bill Gates.
Microsoft, run, you're being single white female.
Huawei's latest Mate 60 Pro flagship smartphone seems to be powered by a homegrown Chinese chip despite international attempts to slow Chinese chip making down. The Kirin 9000S SoC is suspected to have been created by China-based SMIC using its second-gen 7nm process, according to semiconductor researchers at Tech Insights, who performed a teardown of the Mate 60 Pro. Little is officially known about the Kirin 9000S, in part because it's shy, but also because it was made in defiance of US sanctions. The US government blacklisted Huawei in 2019 over espionage concerns and levied export controls to prevent Chinese companies from acquiring advanced chip fabricating equipment late last year. It's not clear that these attempts to curb Chinese production of high-end chips have been entirely ineffective. It's more likely that the Chinese government and industry have been putting a massive amount of resources into overcoming them. If the Cold War proved anything, it's that a nation with enough money and determination can accomplish amazing things, like Jell-O made of boiled eggs, or shooting a dog into space,
Or being first to the moon and pretending like that was the best thing to come out of the space race.
or pretending to be first to the moon.
Stanley Kubrick.
Now it's time for Quick Bits, brought to you by The Ridge, who's teaming up with Hennessey Performance again for Ridge's third annual summer sweepstakes. You can win some amazing prizes, like a Hennessey Ford Bronco or $75,000 in cash money, baby. No purchase is necessary, but you can get a bonus entry for every dollar spent on the Ridge products, or up to 1,000 bonus entries for every dollar spent on Hennessey products like cars. Head on over to their website to secure yourself some sleek wallets and fancy key cases, and maybe end up in a Hennessey Ford Bronco Velociraptor in the process. Check them out at the link below for 10 bonus entries into the sweepstakes. Wait, when are the Quick Bits happening? After this intro. I already knew that, but I'm playing along with what the script says.
Oh my god.
The Museum of Classic Chicago Television nearly lost its 16-year-old YouTube channel dedicated to preserving TV history after it posted episodes of Bewitched, a 60-year-old series owned by Sony Pictures Entertainment. The copyright strikes were actually sent by a firm hired by Sony, so the museum was unable to discuss the matter with Sony directly. Fortunately, Sony eventually offered to get the channel back up, and all it took was the story being picked up by a publication with enough clout to contact Sony and receive a response. The system works. Geo Media, owners of Gizmodo, have laid off the small editorial team of Gizmodo en Español, which will from now on publish machine-translated articles from the English site. The transition has been less than seamless, with readers complaining that some articles will start in Spanish only to switch to English halfway through. Geo Media, which also owns The Onion and Jezebel, has been experimenting with AI-generated articles since at least July, raising the possibility that we might soon see articles that are written, then translated into another language entirely without human intervention. And if Geo thinks that won't cause problems, then all I can say is, estoy muy embarazada para ti.
Felicidades! Congratulations, my guy.
Apple has signed a new long-standing deal with ARM, according to initial public offering documents filed by ARM on Tuesday. The deal extends beyond 2040, meaning corporations have beat humanity again. You'll never see a human worth billions of dollars staying in a marriage for 20 years. But Apple has still, that's so jaded, but Apple still hasn't escaped their last relationship because Intel Foundry Services has decided to invest in ARM, possibly to give them an excuse to text their ex. It's like a love triangle, but between faceless and emotionless corporations. Apple also might launch low-cost MacBooks to compete with Chromebooks in the education sector, according to a questionable rumor from allegedly bad guesser, DigiTimes. They claim industry sources say the new laptops will differ from MacBook Pros and Airs by having a shell made from different material and have cheaper components. If true, Apple will finally take a break from making the world's most premium future e-waste for the elite to make cheap future e-waste for the people. And a new study of 25 car makers by the Mozilla Foundation found that every car brand they looked at had massive privacy concerns. There are some standouts though. Tesla failed every single one of Mozilla's privacy criteria. Nissan and Kia both say they can collect data on your sex life for targeted ad purposes in their privacy policies.
There's no way they can collect it all.
And 6 of the car companies say they can collect your genetic information or genetic characteristics. So whatever you do, don't have sex with your car again.
It was one time.
But you should definitely come back on Friday for more Tech Linked. We won't collect your genetic information, though not for lack of trying.